Hey guys, Paul here. Thanks for tuning in. Welcome to RDTV today, where we're driving Automobilista and we're taking the upcoming rFactor 2 DLC, the Metalmoro MR18, out for a test drive around the current configuration of the Spielberg circuit, also known as the Red Bull Ring, home of the Austrian Grand Prix in Formula 1. The reason we're taking the Metalmoro MR18 out for a spin today is because it will form part of the car lineup of the upcoming Riser DLC for rFactor 2. It's a prototype car, so it's something a little bit different from usual, and it will be one of the 4 cars that are going to be ported over to rF2 as part of an upcoming DLC that we hope and expect will land in rFactor sometime in the coming weeks. Now this is the smaller and slightly lower powered of the 2 prototypes that are coming in the DLC, so we've gone for the easy option first, as you do, and I'm looking forward to putting some mileage on a car that I've done very little, if any, driving in Automobilista up to this point. Now, to test this car and to give our feedback and impressions to you guys, we're going to do an AI race. We're going to race against 24 cars. We've got 101% AI difficulty, and as I say, we're racing at what Riser Studios call Spielberg, but we better know as the Red Bull Ring in Austria. So, without further ado, let's get onto the track and let's see what we think of this car and what we're looking forward to seeing it in rFactor 2 in the very near future. Okay guys, here we are on track and having ourselves, hopefully, a very good time in this prototype for Automobilista, soon to be coming to rFactor 2. Now we've got, as I say, the Metalmoro MR18. This is the slightly smaller, slightly slower of the 2 prototypes that are coming to rFactor 2 in the very near future. We've got a weight of about 860 kilograms. We've got, performance-wise, we're running just under 400 horses. So, for a relatively light car with a lot of downforce, it's still got more than enough performance to keep us happy. The A1 ring, or the Red Bull Ring as it's now called, is a reasonably fast but still reasonably short racetrack, so that should keep the cars bunched together nicely for a good race. And as I said earlier, we're not doing multi-class in this video. We're going to stick to a field of single-class cars. So again, hopefully, that should be enough to give us a good challenge out on track and give us plenty of opportunity to take a look at these little-known prototypes. Now, Metalmoro is perhaps not a brand that immediately comes to mind when thinking of endurance prototype cars, and that's not surprising. It's a Brazilian manufacturer who ply their trade over in Brazil. They're not really on the world stage in anything like the World Endurance Championship or the Spa 24 Hours or Daytona or anything like that. So it is very much a local Brazilian manufacturer that races on the local Brazilian scenes. I just snatched a rear brake, but got away with it. And it's not really surprising. Riser Studios are a Brazilian studio. They are known for supporting the Brazilian racing scene with their content. So in that regard, it's really nice to see another lesser-known racing car coming to rFactor 2. And it's particularly nice that it's an endurance prototype, which is something that we've not got a lot of in rF2 at this moment in time. Of course, we've got the LMP2 and LMP3 car recently brought to the sim as part of the growing endurance packs that have come in the last 7, 8, 9 months or so. But to see another prototype type car in rFactor 2 is going to be a really nice treat for us fans who enjoy multi-class endurance racing in the sim, which in my opinion is something that rFactor 2 does above and beyond all of the sims. It really is the title of choice for me when it comes to multi-class online endurance racing. So to see that content fleshed out with another prototype is really good news. However, I must admit, I don't know where these cars fit in terms of pecking order with the current class structures that we know, LMP1, LMP2, LMP3. I'm not sure where this fits on the performance spectrum. And I think for me, it'll be very interesting to see how Studio 397 and Riser balance these cars against existing content within the sim. Will these be a standalone single make category? Will they perform on a par with the existing P1, P2, P3 class structure? That's all not been confirmed yet by either Riser Studios or Studio 397. So that'll be something very, very interesting to find out once the pack does eventually make it into rFactor 2, hopefully sometime in the early part of 2019. I'm expecting personally sometime, fingers crossed, in and around January or February, but no exact release date following the slight delay at the back end of 2018 has been confirmed by either studio, so we'll have to wait and see a little bit on that one until we can get our hands on this in rFactor 2. But of course, while we're waiting, if you're really keen, you can do what I'm doing now, fire it up in Automobilista and still have a really good racing experience. As I said, for me, I really hope this is balanced with some of the existing content, because at the moment, although I'm saying, in my opinion, rFactor 2 is a very good title for multi-class endurance racing, we've had to, up until this point, really rely on community-made mod content to fill out that sports prototype category within the title. We recently had the Orica LMP2 car and the Norma LMP3 car brought as official content, but that's not enough to flesh out a full multi-class prototype grid alongside the already excellent GTEs and GT3 cars that have come in the recent past. So this and the AJR Metalmoro that we'll look at next will be very welcome in that regard, assuming they are compatible with the current cars from the different multi-classes available in the title. But that's the future, that's something I will press for an answer on that one if I can, and I will come back to you and let you all know. But it'll be interesting to see what they do with that bullet Studio 397. But even if they don't balance it to the existing P1, P2, P3 category, then these still make a very nice standalone class all on their own. And it's really nice, as I've said already, to have some more diverse content coming to rFactor 2. I dare say licensing, developing and bringing out an obscure Brazilian manufacturer like Metalmoro is particularly high on the priorities list for some of the other sims that we race day to day. So seeing something a little bit more unique, a little bit interesting like this in rFactor 2 is always welcome. And one of the many things I enjoy about sim racing is the way that you are exposed to racing content that you just wouldn't normally know about following motor racing through the traditional means, either online or on TV. So this is a category, the Metalmoro, I will admit, is a brand I did not know of until firing up Automobilista and seeing it in there. So I'm really grateful to Riser and AMS for exposing me to what is a very awesome looking little car. It's very European in its style, and it looks like much of the P1 style field and grid, but it's got a little bit more of an earthy and a basic kind of feel to it. It does feel like it's definitely not a Toyota with €100 million budget. This is something that's been created by engineers to go racing, and it feels like it, it looks like it, and it's a really good, as I say, a really good, in my opinion, idea to bring this content to rFactor 2. There's a lot of tracks that will suit this kind of performance car, and it's nice to see that the AGR and the MR18 come into the sim as well, because they're both very different kinds of prototype. The MR18 is the newer of the two that we're driving now. And it's, as I say, it's a little bit slower. So it feels to me like this is kind of P3, LMP3 style performance. Probably not quite as fast as a P2 and certainly not an LMP1 challenging car. So I suspect this will come in around the Norma LMP3 sorts of pace, and that'll be nice because they're two very different racing cars, so it'll be nice to have somebody to play with in the LMP3 class if indeed it does end up coming into that category. Looking forward to that. And as for the car itself, it's nice looking, it's a nice design, it's very racy, it's very modern prototype looking. The cockpit's quite basic in comparison to some prototype cars. The audio, in Automobilista at least, is very nice as well. It's got a nice pitch to the engine tone. The sound effects are always nice when it's kicking stones up underneath the car and muck and everything like that. So it's the usual Riser Studios quality. And the force feedback and the handling again are also very, very nice indeed in AMS. It's a very safe and secure and steady car, as you would expect. It's not ridiculous amounts of horsepower, but there's an absolute ton of downforce. So this car's very planted to the road. It brakes very, very well indeed and doesn't really want to lock up on you. You've got to be a little bit careful on acceleration if you drop it into first gear, because the engine is turbocharged, because the engine is not as high performance, as high horsepower as some of the others. It doesn't always pick up as well as you would hope out corners, so sometimes you do have to use first when you'd rather use second, and you've got to be very careful on the throttle in those situations, because as with any kind of prototype type car and high downforce car like this, once you do get beyond the edge of grip, it will just spin and there's absolutely no recovery in it whatsoever. So you've got to be mindful of where your limits and your car's limits are when taking this out on the track. But getting to the 95% of that limit is very, very easy in this car. It's very, very smooth, it's very grippy. Turns where you want it to turn. It's a nice, very comfortable and easy to drive car, but the final 5% is very difficult to achieve, because as I say, you've got to know the car, you've got to know where its limit is, you've got to know not to push it over that limit, otherwise you're going to go spinning around in circles and that will be the end of your on-track adventure. So in that regard, it is simple but tricky, if that makes sense. And I'm curious to see what it'll be like in wet weather conditions as well. Of course, rFactor 2 has a full weather cycle, so this will be an interesting one. This will be quite challenging, I think, in when there's a little bit of precipitation in the air and the track's a little bit damp. This one will definitely keep you on your toes, I am sure. Running dry, like we're doing now, we've got a morning race at Spielberg. It's quite a warm day, we're set it to, so it's a nice spring or summer day. The car just eats the road up, just wants to stick. As with any downforce car, the faster you go, the more effective the downforce is, the more grip you've got, the more heat you're getting into your tyres, making them stickier. Big wing on the back and the complicated aerodynamics at the front of the car, manipulating the airflow to suck your car to the floor. And it's a car that just begs to go faster, 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 which is expected behaviour, quite frankly, of a prototype car of this kind. So although it's reasonably quick, it is a nice beginner-friendly prototype endurance racing car. So I think a lot of people will get a kick out of driving this when it comes to rFactor 2, hopefully at some stage later on this year. Because again, second gear for safety coming out of that hairpin is giving me bogging down and the field are pulling away a little bit. So you've got to be you've got to focus on your corner exits in one of these. The brakes are pretty good. You can get fairly deep into the corner on the brakes and it'll not lock on you and it'll slow the car down. So it's kind of a bit of a fait accompli, the entry to a corner. You don't really need to worry too much about that unless you're doing something significantly wrong. It's the corner exits where the lap time in a car like this can be found. It's not too fond of the curbs, so you have to be careful of that one. But it's getting a good run out of the corners is where you're going to find most performance in one of these. It'll be interesting to see what it's like on a shorter circuit that doesn't have much in the way of straights. The car does seem to want to change direction quite comfortably. It's quite happy changing direction mid-corner as long as you're not too aggressive with the movements and you unsettle that back end, because as I said earlier, when that back end unsticks, there's no recovery. It's game over for you in a heartbeat. Well, and I like this. It's a nice car. It'll complement the current content in rFactor 2 quite nicely, I reckon. It makes a nice difference from the Formula V that also forms part of the pack. It's quite the polar opposite, really. You've got an entry-level Formula car, and then quite powerful, quite advanced prototype high downforce GT car. So that's a nice contrast between the two. It gives you a nice flavour of the spectrum of cars Riser Studios are capable of producing. And as I said in my previous video as well, very interested to see how that transfers the Studio 397's rFactor 2 software. I suspect it will be very good indeed, but very interested. As he's checked up massively into that corner, which I wasn't expecting. And that's the sudden breaking of the downforce in a car like this. It's just going to go round on you and it's game over. Okay, we hit his back end, but with these sorts of cars, with this level of downforce, if you suddenly break that downforce for whatever reason, so you're too aggressive over a curb, or your back end goes, you're a little bit too fast into the corner, then it will bite you instantly. As you saw there, hit the back end of that car, it unsettled what was already up to that point a very stable car, and then just put us round on a sixpence. So caution has to be applied, as is always the case with this kind of car, always the case with an endurance prototype. You've always got to apply a level of caution to any kind of downforce car, because that's the good and the bad thing about downforce. When it's working for you, it allows you to do things with a car that's just not possible in a situation where you've got mechanical grip only. It gives you the ability to take the corners so much faster than it would be possible without wings. But downforce is also a bad thing, so if you lose some of that artificial grip, shall we say, for whatever reason, so you're in dirty air, the car in front, you hit a curb and you unsettle the car too much, or you make a light amount of contact like we did there, and as soon as that happens, you're already heading straight towards the scene of the accident very quickly, because your car is going artificially above the level it's capable of performing at without the slicks and wings. And as soon as you take those away, those artificial benefits away, then your car suddenly goes, hello, I'm not supposed to be doing things like this, I can't cope, off you go. And that's the age-old problem, and that's why Formula 1's rubbish nowadays, because there's too much reliance on aerodynamics that stifles any ability to get close to anybody and have a good race. But that's a story for an entirely different video, and an entirely different channel, actually. So we'll not wander into the realms of why I don't think Formula 1's particularly good anymore. We'll stick to what we know, peeps. We'll stick to sim racing and things we enjoy. This is a happy channel, not a sad, controversial one, but a happy showing you good things channel. let's stick to showing you good things. And these cars are indeed good things. I like the MR18. I think it's a very nice, it's an entry level, it's a prototype endurance car for the everyman. It's an entry level, it's got all the characteristics of the bigger ones, but it comes in a much more sensible, much calmer package than it would do if we had a Porsche 919 or an Audi R18 or something like that one, or a Toyota TS020, I think it is, that Fernando Alonso's racing this year. That's not to say I wouldn't like those kind of cars in rFactor 2, and absolutely love those kind of cars in rF2. And they are available as part of various different mods, both paid and free, so you can still get that kind of kick in rFactor and Assetto Corsa if you so desire. But in terms of studio created first party content, at the moment in rFactor 2 we've got the aforementioned LMP2 and LMP3 spec cars, and then these two, the MR18 that we're driving now and the AJR that we'll be driving in a few moments, are also coming up, but we're yet to understand exactly where they will fit in the spectrum of classifications currently defined in the sim. So I'm looking forward to finding that one out, got to admit. But either way, it is good quality content. I'm sure you'll enjoy it. I like it very much in AMS. I think the force feedback is very enjoyable in this car, as pretty much every car in Automobilista is. So again, I'll repeat what I've said in my previous videos. Very curious to see how that transfers into the force feedback system of rFactor 2, which is a very, very good one indeed, in my opinion. So yeah, should be an interesting journey. I'm looking forward to this Riser DLC bundle for rFactor 2. Great deal. There's a lot of questions I'm looking forward to having answered by trying these cars out for the first time, not least of which is two of the development studios I respect very highly indeed, Studio 397 and rFactor 2, and Riser Studios and Automobilista joining forces is absolute. It's a super band. It's Paul McCartney joining up with Ronnie Wood. It's yeah, going to be a super band. That, looking forward to hopefully it being as good as I expect it to be. So I'm going to click my fingers, I'm going to perform some magic, and for you it'll feel like a thousandth of a second, but for me probably more like half an hour. I'm going to use the magic of video editing and reappear all of a sudden in the Metalmoro AJR. So 3, 2, 1. Ta-da! We're back! We're in the bigger, faster, meaner, more powerful, more aggressive, and altogether more awesome Metalmoro AJR. By the power of video editing and some kind of sorcery, we've seamlessly transitioned to the second of the two cars that we're reviewing today in Automobilista, with a view to the upcoming rFactor 2 Riser DLC bundle update. So, Metalmoro AJR. You'll notice immediately this thing is bigger and faster than the MR18 we took out last time. It's bigger in terms of real estate, it's a larger car, and it's bigger in terms of weight as well. So this one weighs in at 910 kilograms, so slightly heavier than the MR18 that we drove last time out, but that's compensated with a few more horses under the hood. So this one is about 502 horsepower compared to the 400 and something that we had last time out. And it also comes excellently in 4 different engine configurations. So we've selected a Honda power unit for this. It's a 2-litre turbo Honda power unit. You can also have it in a Judd, a PowerTech or a Chevy. But on this occasion we've gone for Japanese technology because we feel sorry for them after their awful time they're having in Formula 1. They've got a Japanese engine, a Brazilian car, racing at an Austrian circuit. Now that is multinational at its absolute finest. There you go, peeps. Included everybody in our selection of car, trike and engine configuration. Now, the manufacturer names are not the only difference in the engines, there are also different engine configurations, so each one has its own unique variant and gives you a different experience behind the wheel. We've gone for 2 litre turbocharged on this occasion, although you could have gone for a big block Chevy V8, that would have been nice as well, and all other different combinations. That depends on which manufacturer you choose. Now, that's really nice because that adds a little something to the Metalmoro AJR, that adds a little bit of variety. It gives you a different experience behind the wheel and also a different audio experience, which I'm sure many of you will agree the audio is very important for the immersion, and I think they've got it pretty good with these 2 prototype cars that we're driving. I think the audio sounds, I mean, AMS has always sounded good, I think, in terms of the atmospheric, so the stones kicking up underneath the car. I think I mentioned it actually in the last video, but I think the audio of the engines themselves has really, for me at least, stepped up quite a bit recently. Now, I don't know whether that's an update or whether I'm listening to it with a more open mind and my tastes have changed and my expectations have changed, but I think compared to AMS version 1 when it first came out, when it first migrated from the game stock car Extreme title to today, the audio experience is far, far, far superior in my opinion. And I'm interested to see how that's going to transfer to rFactor 2. Much as I love rF2, I think the audio side of the sim has always been a little bit hit and miss. Some have sounded really good, some less so. So I'm interested to see how this transfers over to that sim when the DLC eventually comes out, hopefully in the coming weeks. It'll be interesting to see what differences a more modern base engine that is the rFactor 2 one, because of course AMS can trace its roots all the way back to the original rFactor 1, the IS motor, G motor game engine. So it'll be interesting to see if the rF2 game engine has brought any opportunity for a more rich audio experience based on the starting block that we've got already for these cars in AMS. But that's all for the future. The DLC's not here yet. It's all speculation. I'll do my very best to try and get my hands on it a little bit early and do some preview videos, but no promises on that one, peeps. I will try though. I will most certainly try, because new content in rFactor 2 pleases me, and I have greatly enjoyed my time shedding some light on these prototype cars, the MCR Sport 2000 and the Formula V as well. So I'm looking forward to laying my hands on the updated rFactor 2 DLC versions of them when the time comes. But let's talk about this one some more. Let's talk about the Metalmoro AJR. I said it's got about 500 brake horsepower and some more detailed aerodynamics than the MR18 we drove last time round. And those sort of figures and this kind of lap time makes me wonder if this is an LMP2-esque sort of space in this car, which will be really nice. We speculated when driving the MR18 round where these cars will fit into the class structure of rFactor 2, and it does feel like this is a good candidate to go for a rival to the current Orica that's available in P2, which would be really nice. That will really help flesh out that category a little bit with the help of some mods as well. There's some good quality from a number of modding groups, P2 spec cars in rFactor 2 as paid and free DLC. So throw this one into the mix as well. It's got all the goodies of Studio 397 and Riser Studios quality associated with it, and I think that should go a long way to making a nice bit of diversity into the P2 category within the game, which, as I've said before, and I will continue to say, and probably say again before this video's over, is something we so desperately need. I want to see richness in the prototype categories within rFactor 2, so we can continue doing what it does best, which is multi-class racing. Anybody who's ever raced the RaceDepartment Le Mans series that we ran last year, or, well, any of the previous RDL MS seasons, all 9 of them that we've done, will know all about how much fun multi-class racing in rF2 can be. It's great for the long distance racers, 24, 12, 6, 3-hour racers, and there's just something special about prototypes, LMP1s and 2s, and the GTE or GT3 category, all racing on the same bit of tarmac together. There's just something beautiful about that, and the more first party official content that can come out for the sim that facilitates that, the better, in my opinion. So yeah, looking forward to some of the opportunities these 2 cars will bring to rF2, even if it is a little bit bizarre to have a Metalmoro in that class, because it is a brand that predominantly resides in its native Brazil and races locally, so it will be a little bit unusual to see one of those racing against an Orica or a Ligier or something like that. That will be a bit unusual, but it's good. That's why sim racing is awesome, because we can put combinations, hello, travel in it, there you go, just so you can listen to that stones throwed, that's not a word, stones being thrown around in the underside of the car and the wheel arches. That's why I did it. All for you people. Nothing to do with running out of talent. It's purely an experiment to allow you to enjoy the sounds, the sights and smells of rFactor 2 upcoming DLC with Automobilista. Right, now we've got a bit of a gap to the car in front, so we need to do a little bit of pushing. Now, much like the MR18 that we drove last time, but even more so with this car, the AJR Metalmoro, because it's faster and bigger, it's got some more downforce, it's got some more horsepower, it really encourages confidence. You need to be confident, you need to be willing to push the car to its absolute outer limits to get the lap time out of it. You can brake a lot deeper than with most cars in Automobilista into the corners, although this one does want to lock a lot more than the MR18 before it did. A lot more actually. The MR18, I found it quite difficult to lock the front wheels. It really had a nice, even and level braking feel to it, where this one is a lot more keen to snatch a brake under heavy braking load, so you have to be a little bit cautious of that one. But this one feels a lot lighter, even though it's a bigger car and a heavier car, it feels a lot lighter on its toes than the MR18 did. There's a little bit of initial turning understeer, and I'm only talking fractions of a second, we're not talking massive push. It's not on throttle understeer, it's turning understeer. So that means if I turn it so much, there's a small pause while the car gathers itself together and then turns into the corner. So that's something that you need to think about, and that's more than likely a product of both car setup and the weight and size of the car as well, because this is a big vehicle. There's no mistaking that at all. This is a big racing car, even though it's got a lot of downforce on it, even though it's a prototype, so it is very much designed to be aerodynamically aggressive and to stick to the track for long periods of time and protect its tyres and allow you to do longer stints. Because obviously the endurance racing, especially at somewhere like Le Mans for example, where the top speeds are very, very high, the less time you spend in the pits having to change tyres, the more track position you will gain. So if you can eke out 1 or 2 laps per stint over your rivals in a 24-hour race, even 1 lap in a 24-hour race, that's potentially a full stop you don't have to make compared to some of your opposition. and that's very important in endurance racing. Fuel economy and tyre wear are critical in long distance endurance racing. I did a league a few years ago now. Wow, a few years ago, that's crazy how fast that's gone. But we raced in the GT category in rFactor 2. The car that we had was not as fast outright as the class leading cars, but we made up for it by deliberately driving to a fuel economy strategy, deliberately trying to preserve the tyres, setting the car up in such a way that we could eke out 1.5, 2 laps worth of fuel per stint, and that brought us back into the game at the end of the race because we were spending less time held up in the pits, and those times that you save, because obviously pit stops take quite a long time, brought us back into contention right at the very end of the race. And that's the sort of thing I actually love about endurance racing, is that strategy and element of, it's frustrating when you're in the race and you're watching the car that you're racing start to pull away from you quite significantly, and you know that you can't knuckle down and start going for the lap time to catch back up. You've got to keep on plan to your strategy. You're racing to a delta, you're constantly looking at your average fuel consumption and your tyre wear, and you might be doing a 6-hour race, and for 4.5, 5 of those, you're not in contention. You're P5, you're P6, you're a good minute behind where you need to be. And then because the fuel plan and the pit stop strategy plays out in the final portion of the race, you're straight back into the heat of battle, and you're back on track and you're sharing the same piece of tarmac as the rival, and then you can go for it in the final 15, 20, 25, 30 minutes of the event. And that is one of the most satisfying experiences you could possibly have, for me, in real or virtual racing. And one of the many reasons why I so strongly love endurance racing, both real and virtual, is because yes, there's driving, yes, you need to be consistent, yes, you need to be fast, you also need to be smart, you also need to think about what you're doing. You've got to think about the race in its entirety and the big picture and the grand scheme of things. You're not always scrapping over every single position with every single car. You've got to keep your eye on the prize at the end of the race, and that's a skill all unto itself. Actually, that's a certain mindset needs to be applied for driving like that, and it's very different in these kind of cars in a prototype than it would be in a GT class. I personally always favour the GT class. I like the slower closed-top GTs. It's a little bit different in prototypes. Of course, you've still got to be mindful of fuel and tyres. The same still applies, but the cars are the class-leading cars, the faster cars, and you've got to work your way through traffic. You've got to be a little bit aggressive, and these are a little bit more flat out than a GT car would be, for example. So a bit of a different mindset. It's a very difficult game to keep pushing at 100% for a 2-hour double stint, for example, or a 2.5-hour triple stint. So that's another skill set entirely. GT drivers and LMP drivers are both have to be experts in their own particular field of racing. So yeah, endurance racing people, if you've not tried it yet, or if the idea bores you of driving a 3-hour or 6-hour or 12 or 24-hour race, don't discount it out of hand without giving it a try first. You might be surprised. Oh yes, you might be surprised. If you've got the time, effort and dedication to make it worth your while to do so, then you will find that kind of racing really does put a smile on your face. There's nothing more exciting. You're going to sleep at 1 in the morning while your teammates are taking the car through the night, waking up not fresh at all at 6 AM, getting back upstairs onto the rig, getting back into TeamSpeak, getting a recap from your teammates of where the nighttime racing's taking you, how you fared, what's happened, the ups and the downs, and seeing where you are again for the final drive back into daylight at the end of the race. That's massively exciting, really good. It's a test of endurance, human endurance, for yourself, keeping your concentration up, keeping your teammates motivated, trying to avoid mistakes. In motor racing, people often think motorsport's about getting as fast as you possibly can, lap after lap after lap, and actually, to be a successful racing driver and to finish at the front of the field, and this is real or virtual, it's he who makes the least mistakes, not who drives fastest. You can race against somebody that's half a second a lap faster than you, but if every 3 laps they make a mistake that costs them a second and 3/4, and you make none, you're going to end up in front of them. And that's the thing, you can be absolutely rapid, but just make one little run wide or slide or something like that, and the guy who's a tenth or two slower than you behind doesn't make that mistake, will net end up at the end of you, in front of you, at the end of the race. So motorsport is about those who make the least mistakes, coupling that obviously with being fast as well and having some sympathy, mechanical sympathy for the car, of course, but consistency is key. Work on that first. Consistency requires effort. Get your consistency right, and then work on your pace afterwards, because Pirelli, I think it is, other tyre manufacturers are available. Always say, power is nothing without control, and that applies to driving as well, of course. Now, we've gone off on a tangent massively, and we're speaking about nothing to do with this Metalmoro AJR or the upcoming rFactor 2 DLC, Riser Studios bundle, so to speak, DLC. Now, like I said, the big differences between this and the MR18 are it's a bigger car, it's slightly heavier, it's got more horsepower. It feels a little bit more aggressive in the way it brakes. The force feedback is a little bit more aggressive on the car as well. The turning understeer is a little bit there, but overall it feels more neutral mid-corner and exit. It's a lot more planted on throttle. Excuse me, I've got a hair that's bugging me now. Sticking. We'll worry about that later. It feels a lot more stable on throttle coming out of the slower corners. In the AJR, if I dropped it into first, the rear end would light up and want to spin round. This feels a lot more stable. Now, whether there's a built-in traction control to the car or not, I am not 100% sure, but it's definitely one that will allow you to, apart from there, mash the loud pedal a lot more aggressively than I could do in the MR18. And it's all round another, just to be expected, it's Riser. It's another excellent piece of content, and it's something that I am very happy to know is coming to rFactor 2, and I'm very much looking forward to trying it in the sim. There's a nice touch that there's the 4 different engine manufacturers and configurations that come from that one, so that adds a little bit more variety and spice to what is essentially a single class in the game at the moment. Aha, no again. I will get that, it's bugging me so much, it's unbelievable. But yeah, that adds a nice bit of variety and spice as well. So again, Riser Studio 397, good choice, well made. Oh, and that's it. Checkered flag. I'm going to go now. I'm not going to ramble on much longer, because this hair is going to bug me until I pluck it out. No doubt it'll be grey as well, which will make me feel a little bit sad inside. But that's another story for another day. So, folks, that's the last of our look at the automobilistic content that's coming to Studio 397's rFactor 2 in the very near future. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you found it a bit entertaining. I hope it's past the time until the DLC's out. I've been Paul. This has been RDTV. Thank you very much for tuning in. Give us a like and a subscribe if you would be so kind. And until next time, I will see you later.